Hey everybody, Tosin here. As requested, I'm making an Outlaw Rogue guide for you guys. So I'm going to try to make this as thorough as possible without being super long. But as far as the talents go, this is the talent build I've been using lately, and I think this is probably the overall best. There's very little wiggle room in both trees. In the right tree, there's even less. Really, you don't have many options. Like, you can take Swift Slasher for a little bit of extra attack speed instead of Ruthlessness right now, because we generate so many combo points. Like, every time we get a pistol shot proc, it maxes out our combo points like a Marked for Death. And if an ambush double strikes, that's also 6 combo points. So right now, I think Ruthlessness is kind of, overall worthless. However, next patch it might be a little bit different, because next patch they're nerfing how many combo points we get from Fan the Hammer pistol shot procs, right? It's going to be 2-1-1 instead of 2-2-2, so it's going to be 4 instead of 6 total. So Ruthlessness might be worth taking next patch instead of Swift Slasher, but right now this is fine, because we have an abundance of combo points. Now on the left build, for a while I was playing this without Blackjack. This is what I was playing before because I really liked having the movement speed. There's some frustrating moments where I'm, let's say, chasing a target around a pillar who's not snared, and as we're circling around the pillar, I just don't have that bonus movement speed to chase him down. So I kind of hate not having the movement speed in some scenarios. However, those scenarios are not that common, so I've come to like this build better, because even though this talent is worthless and you're just using it to go further in the tree, the benefit of this talent is you get Blackjack, which is super nice, because Blackjack can win you games. If you are in a solo shuffle, for instance, and you blind the healer in the opener and then he trinkets, and the game lasts up to, that minute and a half and your blind comes back up, you can then blind, and then definitely with Shadow Dance and Vanish, and if you're a Night Elf, which is the best race for, rogues in general. I'm playing human because I've always been human, but Night Elf is better because you can Shadow Meld re-stealth and benefit from subterfuge as like a sort of like another Vanish almost. But with those options, you can sap off of blinds almost guaranteed every time if your teammates don't break the blind and don't put the healer in combat. So sapping into blinds can win you games, whether it be 3v3 arena or solo shuffle. It can win you games easily. Now sometimes the target doesn't die inside of a blind and sap CC chain, right? Sometimes you can even sap off of a blind twice. Sometimes you can sap off of a blind and then sap DR off of the sap to extend the CC chain. But the beauty of Blackjack is this is like an extra mortal strike. Once they come out of that sap, they're going to be weak healers for an extra 6 seconds. So it's not a complete CC, but when you have wound poison on the target and dampening is ramped up and then they also heal 30% less, you'd be surprised how crucial this can be. Sometimes the healer comes out, has Blackjack, and pops like an NS big heal, and it doesn't do jack, and then you end up killing the target anyway just because you reduced their heals so much. So I think Blackjack is more of a game winner, even though not having the movement speed really sucks in some situations. You kind of get used to it and learn how to play around it a little bit better. But yeah, this is the talent build I use. I think this is the best overall. You can choose, for instance, tight spender or rush setup, but I think rush setup is better because with subterfuge and shadow dance, there's going to be periods where you're cheap shotting their entire team. You got to peel your teammates, for example. You might blind and then dance sap a healer. Well, sap is cheaper with this, right? And then you cheap shot the other targets, twice. It's 2 cheap shots and a sap inside of a dance, right? Or sometimes you even do multiple cheap shots. If you cheap shot a target, burst him, and then do a DR cheap shot. Sometimes you're using multiple of these abilities inside of a dance, so 20% off of those will leave you plenty of extra energy to keep doing damage, and you'll feel less energy starved when it matters. Tight spender is only 10% on finishers, so although you're using more finishers than these abilities in total, usually you're using a lot of these in a row, multiple cheap shots plus a sap, etc., right? Whereas this is just going to be a tiny bit of energy saving throughout the course of the game. I personally think rush setup is better, just so when you do cheap shot multiple people and or sap off a blind, you'll still have enough energy left over to burst. So that's my logic there. And this is the talent build I prefer. I think taking maneuverability and enduring brawler all the time is really good. There are certain scenarios you don't really need maneuverability, but I just love having it. There's so many snares and roots, and just being able to break them on demand is really nice. And then third option is either disarm or smoke bomb. You could opt to get rid of maneuverability for smoke bomb and keep disarm, for example, but I never really do that because maneuverability just makes me feel so much more mobile, because we can also reset the cooldown on sprint, so I think it's most important as Outlaw because we can just sprint more often than the other specs can. And our other honor talents are all pretty garbage after that, to be honest. We don't have many good honor talents. I think Enduring Brawler you pretty much have to take all the time because double striking is like the centerpiece of our entire spec, so increasing that by an extra 15% is pretty huge. So that's it for talents. As far as stats go, Mastery is your worst stat for sure. I think crit is our best stat, and then haste would be our second best stat. You can full stack crit if you want. I like to mix in a little bit of haste. So without the stealth haste buff, I have 12% haste and 24% crit. Naj, for example, likes to go 100% like all crit, and he has like 3% haste. I think that's perfectly fine because our energy regeneration, it's not like our energy regeneration is going to be dramatically increased by getting a little bit more haste, right? So I don't think it matters either way, but at the same time, I also think that we have so much crit that we're basically hitting a diminishing returns at this point. So I have 24% base crit, but then this talent gives our most important abilities an extra 10% crit chance baseline, right? And then when you, so that's, I'm at 34% crit for my most important damaging abilities, ambush and pistol shot. On top of that, you have 20% increased crit chance on the target with Between the Eyes. And on top of that, you can also roll Ruthless Precision. Wow, that was lucky. Got it on the first try. You can also roll Ruthless Precision, which will increase your crit chance by another 15% base, right? So I feel like we're hitting sort of a diminishing returns almost for crit. So I think having a little bit of extra energy for some more energy regen doesn't hurt, because there are some scenarios where you are a bit energy starved, especially against DKs, because they have that auto attack slowing debuff on you that's on you the whole game called Insidious Chill, and that you know, reduces your attack speed by 20%. So I feel most energy starved versus DKs, sadly. And there are pockets in an arena game. If you have a lot of uptime, you will occasionally run out of energy if you get bad RNG. So, if you are out of energy though, Blade Rush is a nice little increase of energy. I believe it also counts as an offhand attack possibility, so you can generate 25 energy, which isn't huge, right? But when you add it to your passive energy, and then also if it triggers an offhand proc, it'll be up to 35 energy. So it is pretty nice for micro energy restoration when you're just not able to push any buttons for a few seconds. And then Killing Spree is also pretty good for energy regeneration because it can proc auto attacks for 10 energy as well. Each strike is hitting with both weapons, so you have several chances to proc that extra 10 energy. So if you're energy starved, Blade Rush and Killing Spree are good options. Killing Spree doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's free damage and restores some energy usually. Also, it's a good root breaker. That's the main use. However, next patch, next week, Killing Spree is going to reduce damage taken by 65%. So you can use it when you're tanking, like getting trucked by like double melee, and if they don't CC you on it, you can Killing Spree as sort of a huge damage mitigation for a couple seconds, which is cool. It's not probably going to be that useful, but I'm sure it'll come in handy sometimes. Now, that covers stats and gear for the most part, right? Versatility, crit, most important. Having a little bit of haste is totally fine. As far as damage rotation goes in the general playstyle, of course, it's really hard to just verbally teach you guys what to do in all situations. It's impossible. A lot of it is just instinct, I do it without thinking, just because of habits and playing so long and having the right ideas, right? You have so many options as Outlaw with Shadow Dance, a short cooldown on Vanish, and Kidney Shot and Gouge and Blind on a shorter cooldown, and being able to sap off of Blind pretty much every time. I mean, you have so many options for controlling and stuff that you really just have to... It's really impossible for me to just tell you the right time to do anything, because I'm not always doing things at the right time. A lot of the time I think it's a good idea to dance and, triple cheap shot somebody. But sometimes I'm like, dang, I wish I saved my Shadow Dance there, because it wasn't needed, and now I don't have a Vanish or Shadow Dance to sap off of my Blind, etc., right? So you can't just play perfectly all the time, and it's really hard to teach how to make those decisions. All I can really teach you is like the general fundamentals of how to do your damage rotation and stuff like that. So, rule number 1, keep up Roll the Bones, Slice and Dice, and Between the Eyes on your primary kill target. It's okay, sometimes you will, let's say, Between the Eyes your kill target, and then he gets bopped. or he gets Iron Bark and a ton of hots, and you just know you're not going to kill him. He pops a big defensive cooldown. It's perfectly fine. You do not have to tunnel vision the target that has between the eyes on it, right? He pops a big defensive, and he's not going to die for sure. You don't need to train him. You can just swap targets, build and spend combo points, and reset the cooldown anyway. Don't feel obligated to tunnel vision the target that you put between the eyes on. It's ideal, though, that you're going to put between the eyes on a target that you are going to be hitting primarily. But as you already know, we can reset the cooldown pretty hard, pretty fast, so it's not a big deal if it gets wasted sometimes. So keep up Roll the Bones, keep up Slice and Dice in general, and keep up your between the eyes on your primary kill target. Make sure if you between the eyes, you do not pistol shot anything until you have a pistol shot proc, because of green skins, whenever you pistol shot, see, I have, you know, the buff to make it do 200% increased damage. But if you don't stack that with the proc, it's worthless. So make sure you have that proc, so it's a big old pistol shot. Other than that, your basic damage rotation is going to be as follows. I'm going to pretend I don't have this ambush proc, right? Sinister Strike. Oh, I got a pistol shot. Pistol shot. Pistol shot unlocks ambush most of the time. Not always. It is RNG, but it's a very high chance. Then you use a finisher. Then you ambush. Oh, look. Ambush double strike like a Sinister Strike, so I got another proc and full combo points. Use a finisher. Pistol shot. Keep up Roll the Bones. Finisher. Ambush because of pistol shot. Finisher. Pistol shot. Finisher. Ambush, another double strike. If you keep double striking the ambush, you can keep going with those 3 buttons essentially over and over. Pistol shot, finisher, ambush, except I didn't proc it that time, so I think you have to go back to Sinister Striking. Once you run out of that good RNG chain, you have to go back to Sinister Striking. I'm getting really unlucky right now. Usually you don't Sinister Strike that many times without a pistol shot proc, but you get the idea. As long as you keep getting the RNG, you can pistol shot, finisher, ambush, finisher, pistol shot, finisher, ambush. If you keep double striking, it's a lot of damage like this, and you can just keep spending combo points on dispatch, keep reducing your cooldowns, keep hitting big pistol shots and ambushes over and over. It's just an RNG fest. Oh, okay, it didn't double strike this time. Sinister Strike. Okay, I got a pistol shot. Use a finisher, pistol shot. Didn't proc it again that time. Very unlucky. Wow, that's 3 in a row. That's very unlikely, by the way. Alright, here we go. Ambush. Okay, it didn't double strike. So basically, every time you ambush and it doesn't double strike, you go back to Sinister Striking for pistol shots. And it's just rinse repeat. That's really all it is. When it comes to using your utility, I can't really teach you too much about using your utility. There's just so many things that you can do. You're better off just watching gameplay footage or streamers like Naj, who streams Outlaw sometimes, like, because it's really hard to instill good decision making verbally, you know? There's just so many options at all times. I will say the most important thing, though, is always utilize your blind into sap if you can. Every time you blind a healer in Arena, if he does not trinket this blind, you have Vanish, you have Shadow Dance, and if you're a Night Elf, you can reset, you know, you can pseudo-Vanish and with Shadow Meld into Re-Stealth and using Subterfuge and get a sap off of that if you need to. So every time you blind, typically, you're not always 100% of the time going to be able to. Let's say you had to Vanish defensively and your blind comes back up, but your Vanish hasn't reset the cooldown and your Dance you had to use to cheap shot everybody to peel. You're not 100% of the time going to be able to sap off a blind, but most of the time you should be able to. Usually you're going to blind so early in the match that your first blind you can definitely sap off of, assuming a teammate doesn't break it, and assuming they don't get put in combat, and assuming they don't trinket. If a healer sits your first full blind, there's no reason not to sap off of it. Unless, of course, the enemy perfectly CCs you at just the right time, you know, and sometimes I'll trinket just to get that sap, because it will, you know, if somebody, like, stuns me right before the blind's about to end, I will usually trinket it, Vanish, and then sap, or if I have Dance running, I'll just Dance sap before I get CC'd again, because it's very important. If you get a blind into a sap with the Blackjack debuff afterwards, I mean, you're going to force so many cooldowns in most cases with that they're going to regret not trinketing that blind. And if they do trinket the blind, then if the game lasts a minute and a half, your blind comes back up before their trinket comes back up, because it's a minute and a half, and then they have no option to get out of that blind, and you get a guaranteed blind into a sap, and then they're pretty much screwed at that point. It will very often yield a kill. If you can make it to the second blind sap, you will very often land a kill. Not always, but often. So that's probably the most fundamental thing you can be doing with CC. Blind into sap as often as you can on the healer. But anyway, guys, I don't want to make this like a huge long video, but you see my gameplay all the time, and you know, if you watch Naja's stream, you see good Outlaw gameplay, and I think you'll have to just put the pieces together yourself for the rest of it, because everything is situational and you're just playing it by ear. We by no means play it perfectly every time. We don't always make good decisions, but you're just trying your best to utilize all your CC and utility optimally. But now you know how to do your damage rotation and gear your character and all that, the basic fundamentals. So the rest is up to you, and I believe in you. So go out there and murder some people role-playing as a pirate. Thanks for watching, guys, and peace out.